All right, so who are some of the biggest prospects to ever sign with the UFC that just sent MMA fans into an uproar? They were like, oh my God, I can't believe it. This guy's signing with the UFC. No, we're not talking about Sage Northcote or CM Punk or anything like that. We're talking about real warriors, real martial artists, real fighting men. Like, for example, Patchy Mix. Patchy Mix is signing with the UFC. He's got a lot of people talking. He's a great fighter. He was a Bellator champion. He's got a record of 20 wins with only 1 loss. He's a submission specialist, 2 knockouts, 13 subs, and he's replacing the injured Chito Vera. He will be stepping up at UFC 316, taking on Mario Bautista. Of course, Chito Vera broke his rib, sadly. I spoke to Jason Perillo. He gave me the whole story. It's a real shame, but injuries are a part of this sport. But anyway, with Patchy Mix stepping in, it had me thinking, who are some of the other really massively hyped fighters to come over from other organizations to the UFC? Now, of course, when you're talking about other organizations, they don't get any bigger or more competitive than Pride FC. Pride FC was unbelievable. I was the biggest fan of Pride back in the day. I wanted to fight for Pride. I'm kind of disappointed that I never got to do that before signing with the UFC. The UFC was always my goal, but Pride, there was just something so cool about it. Seeing the fighters jump up in the air, doing the stomps, the soccer kicks, the knees to the head to the grounded opponent, the 70,000 fans in the building, the woman screaming on the microphone, and the cool entrances. Mirko Cro Cop walking into Wild Boys, and all that type of shit. It was a great show. It was unbelievable. You would get a yellow card for not fighting hard enough and stuff like that. And there was a lot of great fighters, legendary fighters. Now, of course, we had a lot of UFC fighters go over to Pride and compete, and they did quite well. Chuck Liddell went out there and fought Quinton Rampage Jackson and got beaten quite badly. Then, of course, Rampage came over to the UFC, fought Chuck Liddell, knocked him out in the first round. Chuck Liddell went to throw a left hook to the body, and it was a beautiful right hand from Quinton Rampage Jackson that knocked him out cold. Rampage, a legend of the game. Pride, UFC, doesn't really matter. And there was a lot of people that came from Pride. Of course, Minotauro Nogueira, the Nogueira brothers, okay? Legends, the pair of them. And Antonio Rodrigo Nogueira, Minotauro Nogueira, he became the UFC interim heavyweight champion, much like Tom Aspinall. We had Wanderlei Silva, my old mate Wanderlei Silva, the bloody axe murderer, okay? This man was super intimidating. One of the guys that really inspired me younger in my career. I don't mind mentioning that. There's no love lost. Not that I have a problem with Wanderlei Silva, but man, he was wild, he was aggressive, he was bloody exciting back in the day. He was unreal, and I couldn't wait to see him in the UFC, and I couldn't believe it actually when I got to fight him in the UFC. And I was robbed. I was robbed by the judges, but regardless, pretty close fight. Could have gone either way. I think I got it 2 rounds to 1, but hey, it is what it is. But he never became the champion, and that's probably because he wasn't taking all the steroids. A lot of fighters from Pride were taking a lot of steroids, and of course in the UFC, you can't be doing that shit.
That's fucking illegal.
Now, a lot of people were doing that shit. A lot of people were cheating. A lot of people were taking a risk. And if you got caught, you would get suspended, you would be shamed, you would be fined, you would be banished from the sport for a little bit. Who else did we have from Pride? Well, we had, of course, Mirko Cro Cop, as I said before. Mirko, huge fan of the guy. Right leg hospital, left leg cemetery. Great kickboxer, had some tremendous wars in Pride. Had some good wins in the UFC, but his career never really panned out to what we thought it would do. Mirko Cro Cop in his UFC debut was when I fought Elvis Sinasek at UFC 70 in Manchester, the MEN Arena. I was a co-main event. Mirko versus Gabriel Gonzaga was the main event, and everyone was like, oh my God, wait for it, wait for the head kick. And then, yeah, we got to see a head kick, but that came from Gabriel Gonzaga knocking out Mirko Cro Cop in a vicious display of violence, shin on chin. Mirko's leg was all curled up behind him. No doubt needed surgery after that one. Just a beautiful kick, but not from Mirko Cro Cop. But the man's a legend of the game. Now I went to Twitter to see what the people think, because of course everyone's very smart and intelligent on Twitter. No one talks a lot of shit. No one says wild stuff on Twitter. I said Patchy Mix is now on the UFC roster. Who are some of the most hyped signings in the UFC in the past from other organizations? Obviously we had the Pride guys, and the first person that steps up, Luke Rockhold. Of course, Luke Rockhold. This man was phenomenal, the Strikeforce champion. I was the unofficial Strikeforce champion back in the day, if you know the story. If you don't, I'm not going to go into it. Rocco came over, destroyed everybody. He looked phenomenal, just beat the crap out of Lyoto Machida, and then goes up against Chris Weidman. Chris Weidman throws an ill-advised spinning back kick. Luke Rockhold takes him down, takes the belt, but never got to defend it. Oh no, because he went up against Left Hook Larry. But still, we're not here to talk about me. No. Moving on. What else have we got? Patchy will live up to the hype. That shall be seen. Patchy's going to be a problem. Yes, but we're looking for prospects. Kung Lee. Kung Lee, again, a former Strikeforce champion that I had the pleasure of sharing the octagon with in Macau. What a fight we had. I absolutely loved that one. I felt like I was on the set of Bloodsport. We're both throwing spinning back fists and stuff like that. I finished him with like a 17-punch combination. He hits the canvas and then tests positive for human growth hormone. That is correct. Anyway, well, let's go on. There's got to be some that aren't linked to me. The UFC has come a long way since the Spike TV days. Yeah, it has. But what the flip is that going to do with it? Here we go. Eddie Alvarez, the former Bellator champion. There we go. That is a good one. Eddie Alvarez came over to the UFC, became the UFC lightweight champion in pretty quick time, and then made a shit ton of money going up against Conor McGregor at UFC 205, Madison Square Garden, but sadly did not get the win. And by the way, Conor McGregor was late for the press conference.
Sorry I'm late, I just don't give a
What else have we got here? MVP and Paddy the Baddy. Paddy the Baddy, I don't count him. Listen, Paddy's doing incredible things, and it looks like he's targeting Justin Gaethje, and it looks like a title might be in the future. However, he came from Cage Warriors. That is a feeder program. We're talking about people that came from massive organizations like Pride, like Strikeforce, like Bellator, not the feeders. But Michael Venom Page, he was jumping in the air, caving people's skulls in, entertaining crowds all over the world. So MVP, that is a good addition, my friend. Anyway, the list goes on. We got some good ones here. Nick Diaz, coming in from Strikeforce to fight George St. Pierre, is high on my list. However, you all must have forgot, because Nick Diaz fought for the UFC first, and then went and fought for Strikeforce as well as some other places, and then came back to the UFC. Don't make me give history lessons, guys. Come on, here's a good one. Alistair Overeem and Nick Diaz. Alistair Overeem, great suggestion. Strikeforce champion, Dream champion, K1 champion. Came over, knocked the shit out of Brock Lesnar, but never became the champion. Did fight for the belt, and I think he was knocked out against Stipe Miocic off the top of my head.
And I clearly felt a tap.
Had some wars with people like Junior Dos Santos. Had a great career, had a good run, stuck around for a long time. Certainly a really good signing. Here's one that never really panned out. Ben Askren. Old Funky B. Old Funky Ben Askren there. Listen, I'm not trying to talk shit about Ben Askren, but this might go down as one of the weaker trades, shall we say. Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson, one of the greatest that the sport's ever seen. Highly technical, highly proficient, great jiu-jitsu, excellent striking, a great talker, awesome on the microphone, non-stop action, okay? They took him and traded him with Ben Askren, who came over to the UFC, beat Robbie Lawler in a kind of a questionable decision, and then gets knocked out cold in 5 seconds by Jorge Gamebred Masvidal. And that was pretty much it, wasn't it? There might have been one more fight, but I'm not sure.
And there was much.
Of course, this guy, Brock Lesnar, people couldn't wait for him to fight. UFC 100, I shared the card with him. Here's a good point here. Not all the Pride guys made it over to the UFC, but Fedor was the biggest, most hyped catch in all of that group. That is correct. Fedor Emelianenko. We all wanted to see Fedor in the UFC. Of course we did. The Last Emperor, an incredible fighter. A man that wasn't ripped. He wasn't covered in muscles. He didn't look like he was on steroids. He had amazing jiu-jitsu. He had massive power in his shots. He had a chin that was undeniable. Great technique, and was just a legend in Pride. And it is a shame that we didn't get to see him fight in the UFC. But they tried to make it happen. Back in the day, they wanted to see Randy Couture versus Fedor Emelianenko to see who really was the best heavyweight. We didn't get to see it because he had some crazy managers that were like Russian mobsters, and they wanted to own a part of the UFC or do like a co-promotion, which of course they would never do. So we never got to see it. He did go off and fight for Bellator, had some good wins, knocked out people like Rampage Jackson, Chael Sonnen, I think, as well. There's CM Punk. Justin Gaethje, that is a good one. Came over from the World Series of Fighting, still one of the most exciting fighters on the roster. This goes to show, just because you're not in the UFC doesn't mean you're not a good fighter. Doesn't mean that you can't come to the UFC and be successful, because Justin Gaethje has done just that and probably going to go up against Paddy Pimblett. Great question. I've been watching for a long while now, and Michael Chandler is still the first one that comes to mind. Really? No offense to Michael Chandler, out of all the people that we're talking about, the man's won 2 and lost 6. Okay? Good fighter, but I don't think he makes this list. Anyway, moving on. Hector Lombard came in with a lot of hype. Hector Lombard, the wrecking ball of nature, the little small, aggressive son of a bitch. You know, I met him when he made his debut at UFC Calgary. I stepped into the elevator. He was there. We shook hands. He's very small, so I had to literally look down on him. And he did the old squeeze my hand as hard as he could. I was like, relax, buddy. Then he goes out, he fights Tim Boach, gets beaten quite badly, and he never really panned out too much. Anyway, let's keep going down the list. Thank you, everyone on Twitter, for sending this stuff in. Rampage and Vanderlei, Ben Askren. I was so excited for Hector Lombard until you actually saw him in the UFC. That was, of course, Lesnar, Rampage, and Lawler. Robbie Lawler, he was a UFC guy originally, guys. Don't forget that. Brock Lesnar, of course. Kayla Harrison, that's a good one, of course, coming from the PFL. Fights for the belt soon against Juliana Pena, and I think she's got a really good shot of becoming the champion of the world. Anyway, we could go on all day. I really could, because there's a lot of good suggestions there, but my editor, John Brannigan, who's in Scotland, will be having a fit saying, fuck's sake, mate, this video's far too long, like, I can't even fucking edit this, right? So we're going to leave that there. Right, anyway, give him a follow on socials at John Brannigan. He is the man. Without him, this channel wouldn't be what it was. Let me know in the comment section who were some of the most hyped people that came to the UFC and did really well, and who were some of the people that came that were hyped that never really panned out. Anyway, thanks for watching. Subscribe, ring the bell. See you soon.